That topic of private money. I've never missed out on a deal since 2009 for not having the funding. So, yeah, private money, how to raise it, how to get it without ever asking for money is what I love talking about.
Well, most excellent. I founded this podcast because I got really pissed off about the NARDOJ lawsuits and the commission lawsuits. Welcome, everyone, to Realizations. I'm your host, Andrea Gordon, and we are here today with Jay Connor, who is a real estate investor in North Carolina. Hi, Jay. Welcome.
Andrea, thank you so much to invite me along to talk about what I'm so passionate about, that topic of private money. I've never missed out on a deal since 2009 for not having the funding. So, yeah, private money, how to raise it, how to get it without ever asking for money is what I love talking about.
Well, most excellent. I founded this podcast because I got really pissed off about the NARDOJ lawsuits and the commission lawsuits. And I thought, well, I'll either be angry for years or else I can do something to educate the American public about what it is we as realtors do in the varying parts of our world that intersect with different parts of commerce, different city institutions, legislation, how to be a better realtor in the world. So having you on today is an interesting part of this because people who are helping people who are flipping houses need to know people like you, because you are the ones that provide the money for these kinds of adventures. So how did you get into private money? How did you end up doing
I sort of backed into it out of necessity. My wife, Carol Joy and I, we started investing in single family houses here in Eastern North Carolina all the way back in 2003. And for the first 6 years that we were doing this, from 2003 until January of 2009, Andrea, the only thing that I knew to do was go to the local bank or go to a mortgage company
Right.
and apply for mortgages, apply for lines of credit the traditional way. And, that worked out okay the first 6 years, 2003 to 2009. But Andrea, everything changed.
Oh, yeah.
At least for me.
Yeah.
In January of 2009, I called up my banker. His name was Steve. I thought I still had a line of credit at the local bank.
Oh, yeah.
When I made that phone call, I had 2 houses under contract to buy. The potential profit for those 2 houses was over $100,000. So I called up Steve to tell him about these 2 deals and the funding that was going to be required. And Andrea, I learned like that over the telephone that my line of credit had been closed.
Oh, yeah.
And nobody told me about it, for goodness sakes. And I said to Steve, Steve, what in the world are you telling me? My line of credit's closed. I said, I got a great credit score. I've made payments on time for 6 years. We've done a bunch of deals together. What's going on? And Steve said, Jay, don't you know there's a global financial crisis going on right now? I said, no, but you just gave me a financial crisis. I don't have a way to fund these deals.
Right.
I hung up the phone and I sat here at my desk and I thought for a minute, Andrea, and I want to share with you and your audience a very powerful question that I asked myself. And that question was, Jay, who do you know that can help fix your problem? And when I asked myself that question, I immediately thought of a dear friend, Jeff Blankenship. He was living in Greensboro, North Carolina at the time. We know each other through church and gospel singing events. He was investing in single family houses in Greensboro. So I called up Jeff and I told him what had just happened. And Jeff said, well, welcome to the club. And I said, well, Jeff, I'm not sure I want to be a member of that club, but what club are you talking about? He said, it's the club of having your bank shut me down. He said, my bank shut me down last week. I said, well, how are you going to fund your deals? He said, well, have you ever heard of private money? I said, no. He said, have you ever heard about self-directed IRA companies and how individuals can transfer current retirement funds to a self-directed IRA company And then they can loan that money out to us real estate investors, and the
Oh, that's
interest they
interesting.
earn is either tax deferred or tax free. I said, Jeff, I don't have a clue what you're talking about. I said, what is private money? He says, well, I'm not exactly sure. He said, but there's this gentleman down in Jacksonville, Florida, by the name of Ron LeGrand. I said,
Mhm.
who's Ron LeGrand? He says, well, I'm not sure, but he says he can teach us what private money is. I said, what is it? He said, I don't know, but Ron says we can get a whole lot of it really, really fast. I said, okay. So the following month, February 2009, I went to my first real estate investing conference to learn about private money. And oh boy, Andrea, did I learn about it.
I
I
bet.
came back home, and the first thing I did was I wrote out my opportunity that I was going to offer people in my own network, the interest rate I was going to pay, how they could get their money back in case of an emergency, the length of the notes, without having any kind of a deal attached to it. And
Mhm.
so in less than 90 days, I was able to raise $2,150,000 in new funding from
Mhm.
ordinary people,
Right.
just ordinary people that had investment capital and or retirement funds. And once I raised that money, then I would call them up with what I call the good news phone call and put their money to work without ever pitching a deal. And since that time, I've never missed out on a deal for not having the funding. And I've been so blessed to teach and coach thousands of real estate investors now across the nation. And now I have this community that raises their own private money for their real estate deals.
That is fantastic. That is super duper. Now, do you make your money primarily from loaning this money, or do you make your money from real estate deals yourself at this point?
Well, I don't loan any money. I
Mhm.
just teach other real estate investors how they raise their own private money from
Okay.
their own network. And so I've got a coaching community that I've been coaching other real estate investors since 2011 on how to
Mhm.
do this. And we're
Mhm.
still very, very active in real estate investing ourselves
Right. That's
using
my
private money to fund the deals.
that's great. So you and your wife are continuing to do your own transactions as well.
Absolutely.
And that
Absolutely.
also, I think it's also important because that keeps you tied into what's going on in the exact market you're in.
Oh,
Um,
for sure.
yeah. Now, have you been affected at all by what's been going on in the economy currently?
Well, it's interesting you ask. I just checked a couple of weeks ago at the local bank here on Bridges Street in Morehead
Mhm.
City. And as of 2 weeks ago, if you wanted to borrow money from the local bank and get a 30-year fixed mortgage and it be an investment single family house and you be a landlord, they're now charging 8.3%
Mhm.
plus points, et cetera, origination fees. I'm paying my private lenders 8%
Mhm.
and no points, no origination fees because there's no broker in the
Mhm.
middle of that transaction. It's a
Right.
direct one on one transaction. So,
Mhm.
right now, private money, and when I say private money, I'm not talking hard money. Hard money
Right.
is institutional
So
money,
very different. Yeah.
very different. Private money is just ordinary people that have what I call lazy money. It's investment capital and or retirement funds that's not working
Mhm.
for the owner of that money. And so here we come along with a solution to get them a higher rate of return safely and securely than putting it in a CD in the local bank and earning now less than 3%, or
Mhm.
putting it in the stock market and having to deal with the volatility. There is no
Right.
volatility.
Right. And have you ever had a deal fail?
Now, what's your definition of fail? And the reason I ask that is because after doing over 500 flips, none
Mhm.
of them come in on budget as far as the
Right.
renovation goes.
Right. Right.
That's
I'm just
always,
yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I've been doing real estate as a realtor for 28 years now. And I've been through three economic downturns and I've had stoves thrown at me by disgruntled people who were losing their houses to foreclosure when I was handling REOs for the bank. I've had all kinds of things happen. One guy stuck Limburger cheese down all of the drains in a house and turned the heat up to over 110.
Wow.
I've had a lot of angry people that lost their homes over, the economic downturns. And the question I have for you is that, this seems like it's a no-brainer, obviously, but there is volatility out in the world. And I'm sure that some of the people who have entrusted their money to you have had their own financial issues. What happens if somebody is set up as one of your private money donors and they suddenly don't have the money to privately donate to the situation?
That's why we don't have just one or two private lenders.
Right, right,
We've
of
got
course.
40, we got 47. And
Right.
what's interesting is not one of them ever heard about private money until
That
I put on my teacher hat, private money teacher hat,
you
and
are
taught
funny.
them
You are funny. You are
and
very funny.
and then taught them about private money and not one of them had ever heard of it. So back to your question, seriously, have I had any deals fail? I've had after over 500 flips, I've had a lot of deals that
Mm-hmm.
we did not make the amount of profit that we intended to make.
Right.
But that's why the private lender and their return on their investment is not tied into the profit whatsoever. It's
Mm-hmm.
just like because everything we do is asset backed debt. So these
Mm-hmm.
private lenders, they get their own promissory note and they get their own mortgage or their own deed of trust, as it is here in North Carolina, that collateralizes that note.
Right.
So think of the private lender as the bank.
Right. So they
In
could
the
actually
same,
theoretically foreclose on somebody if they stopped paying.
that's right. That's
Okay.
right. That's
Okay.
their legal recourse. If I
Right.
don't pay them, or if somebody I coach and teach doesn't pay their private lender, then that's their legal recourse is
And
foreclosure, and then they get the property. But another way that we protect our private lenders is we give what's called a 25% equity cushion. We don't borrow more than 75% of the after repaired value on a
Mhm.
single family house. So, to keep things simple, let's say that I'm investing in a house that's got an after repaired value of $200,000. I'm using
Mhm.
small numbers so it makes sense. I'm not going to borrow more than $150,000,
Right.
75% of the after repaired value. Now, I didn't
Right.
say 75% of the purchase price
Right.
because that house I'm going to buy for $100,000 if it needs
Right.
$30,000 or $40,000 in renovation. And that's why I always bring home a big check when I purchase the property because I'm able to borrow much more than what I'm purchasing it for. But again,
Right.
I'm protecting the private lender by not
Mhm.
borrowing more than 75% of the after repaired value. So it's
And
a win-win for everybody.
do you sort of like an FHA 203K? Do you have specialized appraisers who give you an idea of the value, or do you rely on realtors? How do you derive the value?
I have been doing business with Chris Latham for 20 years,
Mhm.
realtor here in
Mhm.
our local market. I'm not a realtor on purpose. I
Mhm.
went to get my license and it scared me to death. I said, my lands, all the disclosures and stuff that you have
Yeah,
to
there's a
do
lot of
as a realtor. But,
liability. True.
but Chris Latham, he's
Mhm.
been my realtor here in this county for 20 years. And Tracy Campbell has been our realtor for 15 years in the adjacent county. So
Mhm.
before we make offers on any of our properties, depending on which county it's in, they send in to us a complete CMA
Mhm.
with the after repaired value evaluation, and they know what we're going to do to the house if we buy it. Everything's
Right.
going to look brand new and smell brand new.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
they know how to pull the
Yeah.
comps.
Have you ever thought about using licensed appraisers for the same service?
I've used licensed appraisers for when it was like really, really expensive homes.
Mhm.
Like we did a home down in Emerald Isle, had an after repaired value of $900,000. I've only used licensed appraisers for that after repaired value for just a handful of the houses because the realtors that I have a relationship with are just so experienced and they know the market
Right.
like the back of their hand.
Like I know how to do these things too. So I totally get it. I just was wondering because I've done a few of these FHA 203K loans, which for my audience, those are loans that where it's an FHA loan that you can get. You still only have to put 3% down, but rather than it being a perfectly ready house, it can be a fixer. And FHA has requirements around health and safety. So for example, if handrails are missing, or if paint is peeling, or if there's some egregious thing that could be something that somebody could get hurt on, like a bad deck or some such, they will require you to fix those things along with all of the renovations and aesthetic upgrades that you want to do in a property. And what they will do is they will send an appraiser out who does an appraisal that gives you the after all the work has been done valuation. And then FHA determines the amount of money that they are going to give you for that fix up based upon the after repair value. That's a type of a loan that you can get as a person, and put only 3%, or sometimes, yeah, I think 3% is the minimum, down on a fixer upper. That's the only way you're going to get an FHA loan that needs this kind of work. Now, what Jay is talking about is private investors. So that doesn't have to do with health and safety items, although I'm sure he takes care of all of those things. And so he's able to use realtors to give him a comparative market analysis on those properties so that he knows what to expect, what the after repair value will be. So that's really interesting. I hadn't thought about self-directed IRAs. I work here with a group that does a lot of renovation work, and they are the lender themselves. And how they are the lender is probably using exactly what you're doing, because I know it's private money. I know it's not hard money, private money.
Right.
In my neck of the woods, the average home sale is at a price is about 1.2 million. So it's California, so everything costs like 18 million times more than it does anyplace else in the rest of the whole damn country.
Yeah.
But so it's a little trickier here, I would guesstimate, to get these kinds of things together. But I love what you're doing. I think it's really interesting. And you're obviously a great teacher because you're funny and you're fun, and you seem to me to know very much what you're doing, and you've covered your bases as far as liability and things like that are concerned. So that's great. And you always work with realtors to do these sales, or do you do private sales with people that are selling properties?
So it depends on the disposition. So my rule of thumb is if I renovate a single family house, then that's going to be listed in the multiple listing service with either Chris or Tracy. And
Mm-hmm.
any research, any comparative market analysis that they give us when we're researching a property before we buy it, if I list it in the multiple listing service, which I will with a total renovation, then of course they're going to get the listing.
Mm-hmm.
Also, my relationship with them is that if a bank-owned property comes on the market, well, both Chris and Tracy have got me on email automatic drip to
Mm-hmm.
where myself and my team are notified of any
Mm-hmm.
bank-owned properties or whatever. Well, if they do research on that for us, then of course I'm going to put my offer in through them.
Good. Loyalty. I love that.
Yep. So there, I'm not going to put the offer in with the listing agent. I'm going to put
Mm-hmm.
the offer in with either Chris or Tracy. But then in contrast to that, if I buy a property, it's not going to need renovation or doesn't need much or whatever, then we've also sold a lot of homes on lease purchase or rent to own
Mm-hmm.
directly to the buyer. Well, we'll
Right.
advertise that on Marketplace, Facebook Marketplace. And so the way that works is we actually will help them get ready for a mortgage. But ever since COVID, ever since 2020, by and large, because of our market, and we don't have hardly any inventory around here where
Right.
we live, very, very low
Welcome to the
inventory.
club.
Yeah. Yeah.
I,
Then
you know
we,
what, I do the listings for a magazine that I'm a columnist for. I write about real estate for two separate magazines. And in Berkeley, California, I just did the listings because I always add what was on the market, what sold, what went pending in Berkeley. In the month of November, 15 properties in the entire city of Berkeley went active, pending, or sold.
wow.
That's
Wow.
crazy. There's nothing to sell anyone.
Wow.
Yeah. And in the city of Piedmont, which is adjacent to Oakland, 0 properties.
Wow.
Median house price in Piedmont is 3.2 million.
Jeez.
And nothing. I mean, it's like you could not be a realtor specializing just in Piedmont or you would starve to death.
And all that's going to do is drive up prices. No
Mhm.
inventory.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So in a low inventory situation, you were starting to say when I broke in there.
I don't remember. It's okay.
Sorry about that. I want to thank you for coming today. This is really great. If somebody wants to study with you or wants your services, how do they get a hold of you?
Sure. Well, the best way to get a hold of me is to take advantage of a brand new private money script that I just published. And I'd love to give it to your audience for free. It's a
Oh.
PDF that they can download. And that's one of the most common questions I get is, well, how do I start conversations about private money with a potential private money lender? And so this script is called the Curiosity Opener. The
Mhm.
Curiosity Opener. And if you want to know how to start a conversation and start attracting private money, you can download that for free at www.jayconner, and I'm an ER, not an OR. So JAYCONNER.com/scripts, jayconner.com/scripts, and you can download that Curiosity Opener private money script.
And once you do that, do you offer private services to people, classes, all of that sort of stuff? So they can,
Absolutely. I have
because,
online courses. I have the Private Money Conference live event
very
that
good.
I put on 3 times a week, 3 times a year. I do
Mhm.
virtual events. And once you download that script, you get invited to my virtual Zoom events that I do on teaching private money. So all kinds of support of anybody wanting to learn how to raise private money without ever having to ask for money.
Well, very, very cool. Thank you so much for your time today. Have happy, wonderful holidays. And I thank you for coming on to the Realizations podcast with me.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much, Andrea,
everyone.
for having me. Thank you.
All righty. Take good care. Bye
All right.
bye.
Bye for now.
If you loved hearing from these incredible voices shaping real estate, you'll want to catch what's next. Click the video on screen to keep discovering more inspiring stories.